Hi guys, and welcome back. This time we get to get down and dirty with what actually went on during the war part.
All right.
This is the plans. This is
So
how people
first
are
up,
thinking.
I am definitely more of a big picture thinker.
What gave that away?
I quite love how the causes interact with the outcomes. You were definitely much more the nitty gritty. How do each of the major plans?
Yeah.
You're thinking on what these are the logistical level.
These are the grand doctrines that everyone had walking into the war.
So
the reason why I don't...
What's a grand doctrine?
A grand doctrine is how do I organize all my armies and all my forces and tell them what the hell to do.
Okay.
It's like Blitzkrieg in World War II. It's like the Schlieffen Plan in World War I.
The marginal line.
Marginal line.
Okay.
There's countless examples of these sorts of plans. I love these things. This is how you structure your forces to actually go look for.
So this isn't just the mission that a soldier is on. This is not just the
battle. This is
battle.
not just the string of battles. This is tactic.
This is no. Tactic is what you're doing in the conflict. This is the grand strategy of the reason why we will have a war. And what?
No, this is what to do when we're at war. Not why we will go looking for a war.
Okay, if it occurs, then this is the pattern. Yeah. Okay, here.
Yeah.
Now we got it down. Mm-hmm. Sorry, we had to go through that.
It's okay. Hey, you didn't know.
So you're going to start with Germany?
I'm going to start with Germany because the German plan is one of the most famous ones in the entirety of this conflict.
And it's quite central to...
It's quite central to happens in this war and in the next one, too. And that is the Schlieffen Plan, named after one notorious staff general who came up with it in 1905.
But he did not live to see...
He did not live to see the war.
Mm.
He died in 1910, I believe, or shortly thereafter, and he retired well before that.
Okay.
So, in 1905, a little bit before 1905, France and Russia announced that they are allied, which causes Germans everywhere to sort of have that minute of, oh crap, this is Bismarck's worst nightmare. We're stuck in a two-front war.
Right.
And not just any two-front war. This is the worst possible two-front war. It's the one over there and the one way over there.
Which goes back to the Friedrich de Grosse days of having a three-fronted war.
And he won. Holy shit.
That you now have to suddenly wage.
Yes.
It becomes difficult. There's lots of planning that needs to go towards it.
It's ridiculous to figure out.
Right.
So Schlieffen sitting there in 1905 after decades of every good German trying to figure this one out and pretty much has to sit down and goes, okay, how am I going to deal with this problem? I have France on the one hand, a very modern, very quickly mobilizing country that we've embarrassed multiple times recently, namely the Franco-Prussian War.
Yeah, but if you completely distract them, they can completely overrun.
Yes. If I ignore the French, they will, however, completely destroy it.
Right.
Then I have the Russians. The Russians in 1905 were fighting the Russo-Japanese War.
Right, and had embarrassed themselves by losing to an Asian power.
Yes, the first time.
Right. Even though it was a massively technologically advancing Asian power.
We're ignoring the fact that
Meiji
reforms don't really make Japan Asian anymore.
Well, in the sense that it was outdated to some extent and non-industrial.
They were industrialized.
Right. Anyway.
And it showed that Russia took a very long time to mobilize its massive army and actually get it there.
Right.
It had a massive army there. So you do have to account for them. So what Schlieffen did is he operated under the theory of, okay, if I can get almost the entirety of my army, somewhere around 90% of my forces, to that western front.
Against
France. And I smack them silly, I might be able to do this. And while he was thinking about this, he began to realize that the French were heavily fortifying certain regions of France, namely around Paris and along the Alsace-Lorraine border.
With Germany.
But
they weren't bordering.
But they were not reinforcing the border with Belgium. So he had the ingenious idea of, oh shit, I'm not going through there. I'm going around that. So he's going to take, of that 90% of his army, another 90%, because he loves 90%. Germans.
It's the what we now call in management the 80-20.
Yeah, that 80-20. He was at 90-20. Why? I need to smash these fools.
Yeah.
He takes that 90%, he's going to smash that through Belgium, and he's going to hit it as fast and hard as he can by taking a rather interesting location of Liege, which is this tiny know-nothing city, which is only important because it holds the rail line.
He's going to get to the rail.
He's going to get to the rail and
transfer
get
the rail
all the way
French
to
rail.
Paris.
Yeah.
And he's going to get there before the French army can spin around and actually go after him. And the reason why the French army will be having a hard time doing that is he's going to provoke the French army into advancing into Germany. This is a crucial part of the plan. He needs the men stationed in Alsace-Lorraine, that 10% of the guys, to harry the French forces but retreat. You know, shoot them, but run away.
Right.
Back across the Rhine. Because at the Rhine, they can probably hold off the French army decently well enough, maybe. They might not get the unit. But
in the meantime,
the French army is now...
through.
Yeah, in the meantime, while that 90% of the army is going that way, the French army is now going to go follow them out of their heavily fortified positions. Meaning that there's skeleton crews back there, which you can easily overwhelm, well, more easily overwhelm. And the French army is suddenly in Germany.
Right.
And now you've stuck them there, and hopefully taken Paris. Congratulations, you've kicked France's ass before Russia even knows you're at war. And then this is where Schlieffen basically goes, and then we'll make a plan to deal with Russia.
Right, with that other 10% that...
The other 10% over there, and it doesn't matter.
Right. I actually want to skip ahead and talk about what the French and Russian alliance is doing.
I would love to talk about that, because Germany does have other plans later, but anyway. The French-Russian plan is known as Plan 17, written out in Roman numerals.
This is because they had lots of grand plans.
They had a buttload of them. Right. And unlike the Germans, who would name them for whoever was planning it, they couldn't do that because there was two dudes planning it all the time.
Oh, okay.
So they had to go, this plan. No. Or more dudes. Anyway. France basically went, oh shit, we really lost the Franco-Prussian War. We need a buddy. Russia. Buddy. And then they began to start playing together intrinsically, which was something that Germany didn't expect. Germany thought the Russians are going to plan their own way, the French are going to plan their own way. They're not really going to plan too much together. They planned a lot together. So much so that the French embassy in St. Petersburg was packed with strategic and diplomatic planners.
Okay.
Anyhow, so all the way back at Plan 11, the French pretty much sat there and went, okay, we need to fortify like crazy.
Okay, that's the Maginot Line.
It's not quite the Maginot Line yet. That's the
interwar period. Okay.
Yeah. It's the line that was there before the Maginot.
So this is creating a series of forts.
This is Fortress Verdun, Fortress Paris. This is
okay.
Setting up Fort Douaumont. All these.
Well, Douaumont is a fort in Verdun.
In Verdun, yeah. All of these massive defensive bulwarks to hopefully slow down the Germans.
Okay.
And the places they focus on are against Alsace-Lorraine, like I mentioned, and sort of around Paris, because to get through that, we need to hit them with another line. They won't expect that. It was a good plan. And then French doctrine, at this point, had two options the French could choose. One, sit tight in your defensive positions. Holy shit, the entire German army is coming. Wait for the Russians to assemble, and then we have so much of a numerical advantage that we can just smash them. It should be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the Russians would bleed them.
Because the Russians would bleed them dry, and the French have even more men.
Or the other plan.
And then the other plan is, okay, now that the Germans are coming at us, let's go try and take Alsace-Lorraine back, and also try to counterattack them through Belgium. Because at this point, almost everybody who knew something about tactics in Western Europe basically had an idea about some part or another of the Schlieffen Plan. It was out there for a very long time. It also got modified a few times. But basically, at the core, the Schlieffen Plan was Germany's worst kept best secret. German diplomats would basically say, I have a plan for taking out France. Want to join?
Anyways.
As we continue over here...
Again, their plan was to hope to get Belgium to let them through.
Yeah, to hope to get Belgium to let them through.
Along with the Netherlands for the extremely high
extreme,
and Luxembourg has another...
Yeah, Luxembourg's another mention.
Okay.
If anyone wants to remember, Luxembourg is actually
Which is why you're currently doing the Benelux.
Yeah, the Benelux to say no.
Yeah, so you make a big block that will eventually hold them.
Yeah, hold the line. Anyway, the problem with Plan 17 was, it basically looked at the Schlieffen Plan and went, aha, I can combat this. But then it did exactly what the Schlieffen Plan wanted them to do, by going into Alsace-Lorraine. Right. Which is now where we have to get back to what actually happened with the Schlieffen Plan when they got executed. Because there's a number of factors that Schlieffen either buzzed over, didn't quite apply in 1905, or the guy who actually implemented the plan wasn't Schlieffen. It was Helmut von Machte, the younger, not to be confused with his uncle, who was the elder, who won the Franco-Prussian War. I know. Really good at naming guys. What do you want from Germans?
Anyways.
Anyway. Von Machte didn't want to retreat. He wanted to hold the line, not let a single Frenchman onto German territory.
So
it's a little bit crazy.
The whole back 10%.
The whole back 10% wanted to hold the line and Alsace-Lorraine and dig in.
Yeah.
So that French army didn't really go anywhere.
Right.
And the French army was absolutely sure, oh, they're going to run away. They didn't run away. They bled you. Right. That 10% miraculously somehow held.
It left the French troops in
the way.
defensible positions.
Yeah. And actually, the backlog of French troops blocked the German advance by the time they got to Marne.
Right.
And that's the problem. It's not the fact that the French were suddenly going, oh, we know they're coming through Belgium. No, the problem was there was enough Frenchmen lined up to invade Alsace-Lorraine that it stitched back that far.
Right.
Because armies are large.
And then on top of that, they have not moved enough of them out
into it
of the defensible positions.
Yes.
Even though they had taken some defensible positions.
Several.
So it then meant that this big no man's land into the trench network that the Western Front started to come now went through some of the most defensible terrain and then out through the plains of Belgium.
Yes, which is not defensible at all.
So yeah, it really boggled down.
Yes.
And so those are the two that play off each other.
Those are the two that play off each other. I'm now going to mention the other German plan.
No, I think let's go.
Okay, fine.
Let's go to the root of the conflict again.
Yeah.
Which is the Hungarians.
The Austro-Hungarians. Yeah. Here we go. So the Austro-Hungarians had three plans going into World War I for something like this. The reason why they had three plans is they thought there were going to be three sizes of conflicts that could happen.
Oh, okay.
The first size of conflict was we're just having a pissing contest with Serbia, and no one else is involved, and we can win this in a week.
Okay, this is just the rolling annexation.
This is I roll the entire Austro-Hungarian
army. That just come out of the Ottomans.
Yeah.
You can now just pick them up on the way out.
Smack them.
Okay.
You roll the entire Austro-Hungarian army in, and you kill them all. The second plan is, okay, so Russia's going to join, but not dedicate too many men. So you're going to split your forces. You're going to deal with the Serbians with half your army-ish. Okay. I think it was 5 divisions out of the 11 in the army.
Division counts. That's way too much.
Sorry. And the remaining guys were going to go sit on the Russian border and fend off any Russian.
Okay, so this is where Przemysl.
This is Przemysl gets built.
And all the other... I know. Is there another major Carpathians, which is the mountain range between the edge of the Austro-Hungarian
this is
Empire,
what makes Przemysl
and what was the Russian Empire, which is now in Slovakia, Moldova.
One of those.
It is out there and split between now several.
It's not a mountain, man.
It's a whole range.
Yeah.
It's like the Alps, but a little small.
It's the next one. And the problem is. Then there's the third plan, which is, holy shit, Russia is fully mobilized and coming for us. Where they completely ignore the Serbians. They put, 2 divisions over there, and just hold them out of the Austrian land, and you throw everything on the Russian front.
They have 3 plans.
Yes.
None of the plans are any way, shape, or form like each other.
Not really.
They now need information to determine which way they go.
The problem is, the Austro-Hungarian government wasn't really good at telling its military what the hell they were doing. The reason for this is all drawn up in the nature of the Austro-Hungarian government, in that Austria really wanted to go kick Serbia's ass and annex it. Hungary said, you are not going to annex them. No.
Okay.
None of that.
So the objectives aren't even clear.
So the objectives aren't clear.
At a governmental level.
Yeah. And then the Austrians, tell the Hungarians, yeah, sure, we won't capitulate them. They then don't communicate that to their generals for a week.
Okay. Which means that all the
general staff
all the way down,
Conrad von Hotzendorf,
don't know which way they're going or anything.
Have no idea what plan they're using. They know they're using one of these 3 plans,
which only gives more time for Russia to mount more forces.
Yes, and the key and crucial thing that the Austrians were banking on is that the Russians aren't going to get here anytime soon. Okay. And then they basically entered into a problem because von Hotzendorf was unavailable when they were trying to go to war. And if you ever try to go to war without your chief of staff around, you should just surrender now. So everything just went to hell.
Fire him and have somebody else, but now you have to replace him.
The problem was there was nobody great to replace him.
Right.
And he was, I believe, in Italy at the time.
Oh, nice.
I think he was in Venice, but I'm not positive. It was a while ago.
Stake it out first.
Yeah, I know, right? And the problem was they took weeks to actually, after declaring war, to actually do war.
Right.
So the Serbians had time to mount a resistance that they would never have done.
So in terms of our outcomes, they totally were unprepared for the quick war that they wanted.
Yeah. Because...
So this would be like in a game of Civ or whatever, you just do a random click and start a conflict, rather than have it mounted.
And then you forget about that random click.
Yeah.
For a week.
Yeah, a couple turns or whatever.
Whatever
the equivalence in game would be.
Yeah. And after Austria-Hungary and the general mess, I have to talk about the next general mess, which is Italy.
Sure.
And they're general messes for a couple of different reasons. Austria-Hungary had a political problem. Italy had an everything problem. They had a political problem in that their politicians and their prime minister and their king didn't really like the Austrians, but they were in bed with them for the Triple Alliance.
Okay, but the new rising political power was now in bed with France.
The new rising political power was in bed with France.
The part of life, this is a long part of the playlist.
Yep. Previously, we talked about this.
Yeah, in the last section.
Yep.
That's sort of the history-oriented stuff.
Yep.
These are all going to lay out in one playlist, and then you check out all of our articles on sort of my side of the screen on the Stairs Right page.
Yep.
If you're on YouTube, you just link through all our stuff. We have articles, we have all this other stuff, and then we have all kinds of links,
reference material and stuff.
Anyways.
Yeah. Carrying on. Italy. So Italy remained neutral.
Okay.
That's the grand QED of what happened last time. Italy, in its neutrality, sat there and went, wait a minute, we hate Austria. The French, they took a couple of weeks going, hey, who wants us more? What you going to offer me?
Right.
What can you do for me? And basically, what ended up happening is the French gave them the better offer.
Okay.
Of, let's give you the Dalmatian coast and Trieste. Good, right?
Extending their
borders and giving them the Adriatic Sea.
Right.
Basically. That made the Italians wonderfully happy, and they basically went, okay, let's go to war with Austria. The problem was, their military was prepared for this. So they spent the entirety of 14 into 15, when they finally joined the war, planning. And going, how do I actually declare war on Austria and not get my ass kicked?
Diplomatic planning, the high-level strategic planning, not training of troops.
Not training troops to actually go into those mountains and win.
Not mobilizing, not...
Yep. That big picture stuff. The good news is they figured it out on the big picture level that Austria really doesn't have its shit together.
Okay, but...
But Austria was just about to get its shit together by the time they actually got theirs together.
And on top of that, you had also German
reinforcements coming. The Germans are coming to save the Austrians from the Russians.
So, Cadorna,
who is the Italian general who came up with this glorious plan for let's just smash through the Alps and we'll
hit the plains
hit Trieste and we'll practically be in Vienna by, I think he said by...
Christmas, I think, is the...
By Christmas is the traditional statement, but I think he said by Unification Day, which is in July. Anyway.
Months. The category of scale.
He was correcting two things. The Austrians were very lightly garrisoning that border. And the Italians did build up enough of a troop surplus to maybe smash through. He forgot about one thing. That's a fucking mountain.
Right.
And our troops...
Which unfortunately really... Have we had any major games that are about mountain traversals?
No.
Particularly, we're talking about
mountains. These are the Italian-Austrian Alps.
Now are Slovenian.
Slovenian.
Yeah.
And there's also the Austrian Alps involved with some of the rest of this.
Yes.
These are the Alps, man.
We're talking about...
This is where professional skiing
several thousand meters regards of difference.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 3,000 feet of difference in height between artillery installations and sniper installations.
Yeah.
We're talking about getting arms and armament up mountains.
Cliffs.
cliffs.
The Italians weren't really prepared for that.
The Austrians had some experience, but
not much.
But not like, the level of troop installation you need for this.
And the Germans pretty much got there and went, what the fuck did we just get into? Because they attacked where the Germans were literally marching to get to the Russian frontier. Right. So they were equipped for winter, but the other winter.
You equally have the other sort of problem that much of the theory about the tactics going into this sort of conflict aren't necessarily
barely post-Napoleonic.
Right. So they're about if we have good morale, our troops will
good morale, our troops are good,
push through.
Yes.
Rather than getting a good position and then holding position to hold ground.
Yes. Several of the Italian generals were very much of the opinion that the Italian uniform shouldn't change because they were these flashy things. Right. And we will not. We must be these puffed up men with the nice caps and the really flashy uniforms. We got to outdo France on this with how flashy our uniforms are.
And then arguably the Greeks too.
And then the Austrian snipers are laughing their asses off
as they can just see them
from miles away.
Right. At great heights and differences.
Yeah. Because they're in red shirts. Worse than red pants.
Again, you can definitely see how difficult this particular nugget of a conflict became. Yes. There's been very minimal sort of references within the games and
the best thing that Battlefield 1 did was they covered the Italian campaign pretty well. They had you go through in the campaign and play as an RDT trying to bust through.
Which is the sort of
special troops that were really good at this stuff. And they weren't wearing the silly uniforms. They were wearing
This is what the Italians sort of learned and figured their stuff out through the war. Anyways.
Took a while.
That's the Italians. Are we done in Russia? You want to go back to the German plans or off to Britain?
I'm going to go back to the German plans just because there's a second plan with Germany. And this is the Schlieffen plan sort of kind of worked.
It's very much about the Western Front.
Yeah. This is the plan for the Eastern Front that we know now is the Ludendorff-Hindenburg plan, but has been called a very large number of things in its life because it got named for the guys who actually executed it.
Oh. Very nice. Are we talking about Tannenberg now?
We're talking about Tannenberg.
Okay.
This is, oh shit, the Russian army got its stuff together and is actually in East Prussia already. We still have all our men in France. How am I going to fend off hordes of Russians with barely enough Germans to actually field? Right. The way they did it was lots of mobilization, running around a lot, and ridiculous amounts of heavily applied artillery fire. Because if you can corner the Russians in and blast the shit out of them, there's no army there.
You don't deal with that.
Yep. And also, they called back for a third of the forces that were in France to come back.
Okay.
But they still had
that's after they got more information
about how midway through Tannenberg.
The conflict's going.
That's when they realized, there's a million Russians here.
14,
that's
15?
like beginning of 15.
Okay.
Yeah. Late 14.
Again, if you want more details about the rest of that, links in the description.
Yep.
And
it was truly a marvel of logistics. The Russians didn't see this coming. The French didn't see this coming for one very clear reason. If not for Ludendorff's meticulous accuracy and Hindenburg's ballsiness, this wouldn't have worked.
Right.
Any other commander in his right mind would have said, I can't move that much material that far.
Equally, you're talking about moving material from the borders of sort of Germany past Warsaw up to the outskirts of St. Petersburg.
Yes.
Taking and holding land in the Baltics, across Belarus, all throughout Russian Poland,
all over the place.
All the way down to the Black Sea.
This is extensive.
Let alone a minor conflict that also had bubbled over in Romania, as Romania was on the side of the Entente.
Yeah.
But got sort of bulldozed by Mackensen, commanding both Austrian and
German forces, which is a slightly different plan and a little bit later, but it's the same sort of idea.
You have a big wall that fundamentally forms. Anyways, that's that part.
And here's the point where I address future plans made by Germany. In 1915, the German staff officers all sat down, did their math, which this is some serious math, and basically went, the odds of German success right now are under 1%. They went, the entire world's against us. We're outnumbered so hard it's not even funny. And they thought about begging the Kaiser to surrender. The only reason they didn't is because they then took the words of a couple of junior officers and a couple of young generals who were yet to prove themselves, and they basically argued that if the Germans were to surrender now, there would be such a massive wave of revolution in Germany.
So,
Socialists, Democrats, liberals, and all those people that the Prussians deemed terrible.
Right.
That the Kaiserreich would be dead. Right then and there. So basically what happened from 1915 onwards, that's another 3 years, is Germany's gambling for resurrection. That means that they have barely any hope of winning, but they're going to differentiate tactics wildly to try and have any manner of success.
Okay.
And they're trying to take as little casualties as possible while giving massive amounts of casualties. This is where you start seeing the death tolls do that on both sides.
Yeah. Well, it's not just because of that. You also have the British sort of involvement, and this is I'm actually trying to cover this as best I can. You jump in.
Just chime in a little.
So they are very much off the continent. Yes. They don't really have any necessary borders. They do have the blockade being absolutely pertinent to holding Germany.
Yes.
Without having the supplies from elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
The Germans counter that with some U-boats and some. That's the sort of the problem at sea that definitely gets the neutral countries to have problems.
All annoyed,
and that's both ways.
Yes,
that's
the Scandinavian bloc were very annoyed with the British for
sinking ships going to Germany.
Yep.
The Dutch also had ships on both sides being hit. The Americans were being shot at as well. Along with the Brazilians and the Peruvians and the Venezuelans and all kinds of people. So that's the blockade. The other big thing is since they had the capabilities at sea, it means that they could have landings and bolster support just about anywhere.
Yes.
Definitely, they were trying to hold up Belgium.
Yes.
And the Western Front, and that's where the predominant part of their
that's where
infantry
the British professional army were. That is the British Expeditionary Forces. That was the biggest bit at best
from the
professional
United Kingdom that definitely went, and definitely the Canadians and the Newfoundlanders.
Yes.
Britain also included dominions in Anzac, South Africa, India.
Yes.
Anzac in Australia and New Zealand. Any other significant bits? Forgetting people out of Britain? Not really. For the most part, they had to be dropped in significant areas that would allow them to apply pressure
on various countries
to put different areas into conflict.
They were trying to start other fronts because they saw that the Western Front wasn't going anywhere quickly.
Right. So where do you ruck in someplace else?
Yeah. To
use a very British sense of the
of
terminology.
Yeah.
So they started supporting different movements in neutral countries to move troops through. Yes. So you have moving through Greece, which was questionable at best, to then support the Serbians and the other
Balkan
powers. They then had the landing at Gallipoli,
which did not go well
which was a disaster. You then also had the Mesopotamian front, which had disasters all on its own. You then had the support of the Arabic Revolution, which eventually gets the House of Saud into power.
Which gets a lot of the glamour of the British landings, considering it was the one that the British Foreign Office thought was the least likely to work.
And arguably was the most successful.
Yep. Certainly had the least Gallipolis.
And then you also had the Gaza and eventually the Palestinian push, which was then also bolstered by a Zionist movement.
Yes.
Being sort of funded, under the condition that it would create an independent country.
Yes.
So this country would not be exclusively for the Jewish
people.
And it would, it
would share with Palestine. It would be a British protectorate. It would
the whole
raft of things. The Balfour
I do think there was an independent country they were talking about.
Yes, but they had to...
There were stipulations.
The stipulation, yeah.
This is, these sorts of pushes and moves by Britain sort of still bolster to many of the conflicts today.
Yes.
And then you eventually get to the U.S. joining.
The U.S. joined for a number of reasons. Most of them were actually economic. Namely that the United States started a Lend-Lease program. We started making bullets, shells, everything you need to declare war on Germany, and we were trying to sell them to whoever we could. The problem is with the mass embargo and blockade of Germany, the Americans had no chance of even potentially making any form of arms deal with Germany.
Right.
No matter how much we might want to.
Just to say, Austria you couldn't even remotely get to.
Austria, no way in hell.
And then the Ottomans, because of the Mesopotamian front and the Suez
and then the Italian Navy and the French Navy,
right? And then
getting there.
The British Navy in general, yeah, that's even harder to get to.
Yes.
It was no way. You write off all that.
So then they sit there and go, we funded the Entente a rather large amount,
right?
And in about
through loans,
through loans, through this sort of military material, all that good stuff.
Not as much as we'd done in World War II.
Not nearly to the
scale. We just repeat all this all over again,
and then amplify it because we had a depression to build ourselves out.
Right.
This then got into a rather large issue. The American people didn't really want to go to war. Wars are costly, nasty things that don't look good on TV.
The American tradition, we talk very heavily about never being influenced by European wars.
Yes, the Monroe Doctrine is a massive issue.
I think it goes before Monroe. This is a thing of Washington at several levels.
Yeah. We don't want to go to wars in Europe. It's also another problem because there's a very large German-speaking population in America at the time, that some of which don't feel all that angry with German imperialism. All that angry. Some of which absolutely hate it.
Yeah, but, okay, for the most part, not to say that they sided one way or the other, but they were not going to fight this over any particular cause.
What ended up happening is that the Americans basically sat there and went, we are owed a lot by the Entente. Not the Allies, that's the next word. And we need to make sure that they're actually going to pay us, because the bill began to get a lot of zeros.
Right.
A lot. And the easiest way to do that was to join the war. And then
on the side of the Entente.
On the side of the Entente. And then there was a whole series of issues with telegrams that may or may not have been sent to Mexico from officials who may or may not have been German about joining the war and getting after us. In details, the Zimmerman telegram doesn't actually mean all that much.
But
it's another
that sparky thing that causes us to get into it.
Equally, the sinking of the Lusitania is a problem.
Major cruise liner that contained passengers.
And weapons.
So you had us having reasons and justifications, and the tides eventually turned.
And eventually it was straws breaking the back.
Right.
Such that in 1917, the Americans determined to enter war.
Okay. Those are all the sort of major plans. So really all we have left is the fun part. Which is, where do you see all the outcomes of what these plans could have done, and what the sort of causes, if they were a little different, could have come into. And we'll be covering that in the next part.
Yes. Thank you all for watching. It's been a long one. If you've watched all the parts so far, you're a good ways in.
Yeah.
This next one will be exciting, we promise. See you next.